What's going on, guys? Little coffee chat today, and I will go ahead and tell you and encourage you up front, pause the video right now and make sure you've got a full cup. We're probably going to be here a minute. Oh, that's good stuff. This one's probably going to be a long one, and I don't make any apologies for it. If you don't like long commentary videos, this one won't be for you. My goal behind this is to get you thinking. Now, there's a lot of stuff that I've pointed out and talked about in various videos over the years. But I was watching someone's live stream last night, and they actually got me to thinking I wanted to do a new video and try to put as many of those different random thoughts that have interjected into other videos into one video. I'm going to try to make it as cohesive as possible, but you'll just have to pardon my rambling train of thought. Hopefully you can grab a ticket at the station and jump on board. But again, I make no apologies. We're just going to talk about some stuff. And I think it's important stuff that need to be talked about. Further down that caveat trail, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you what you're doing is wrong, because I'm only going to tell you what I do, what my friends and family do, and offer it as food for thought for you. You have to make your own determinations, and I don't care what someone's pedigree and background is. Ultimately, they still can't specifically tell you exactly what you should be doing and how you should be doing something, generally speaking. You guys know that I am big on context. Part of context is the fact that we all live in different places, and each of our individual circumstances can be slightly to drastically different from each other. So I can tell you how I do certain things and why I do it, but it's because it's specific to me and my situation, my location, my area, my resources, my people, etc. Your situation, location, resources, area might be completely different. For example, in, let's just say, outdoor sleeping gear. What I use for winter sleeping might be totally inadequate for what you need for outdoor winter sleeping in your area. Or it might be way more than what you need. That does really bother me when people do videos and offer advice, and even some people with really fancy pedigrees behind them are guilty of this. They make blatant statements. This is a great sleeping bag and this is the one you should have. But they don't give any context. You know, like, how many people are you with? What's the weather like in your area where you plan on using it? Do you use it all year round or just part of the year? I mean, there's just all kinds of variables that come into play, right? It's all factors that only you can take into consideration, because only you know what those variables are for you. So I know I've already probably annoyed a half dozen people by just going through all this. I'm 4 minutes into the video and you ain't even got to the point yet. Yeah, well, I'm sorry that God didn't give you the attention span greater than that of a squirrel. I don't know what to tell you. We're here to talk about stuff. Hence why it's coffee talk. We're just sitting around a table talking. The only difference is I just can't physically hear you talking back in the conversation. So again, I'm going to try to tie all this stuff together, but you guys know, just up front starting out, the context that I do everything from is from that term that I coined many years ago, the armed prepared citizen. Let me back. I don't do notes or anything here. We're just doing this off the brain, so I'm already at a deficit there. I've talked a lot and have a lot of videos about guns and then secondarily gear. I've done that on purpose because that's what I know the most about. It's what I've been involved with the most in my life. Now, I don't have a bunch of fancy pieces of paper to show you that I've got all this particular background to be an authority on that, and I don't consider myself an authority on it. But I've been messing with them, shooting them, working on them in one capacity or another, honestly, the vast majority of my life. I know a little bit. I don't try to talk about a whole lot when it comes to things that I don't have that much knowledge and experience on. That's not to say that guns and gear are the most important thing. I have made this point many times before. Just because I talk about them a lot does not mean that there are not just lots of other facets of this whole big giant picture that you need to be focused on and paying attention to. Most all of the different facets of being an armed prepared citizen, survivalist, prepper, whatever terminology you want to use, most all of them are actually fairly equal in importance. And I say fairly equal because some are, I think, are slightly more important than others, but emphasis on the slightly part. I think the martial side of it carries a slightly more weight of importance than some of the other sides, because the martial side is what's going to give you the ability to not only protect yourself and those that you care about, but also protect and keep the stuff that you've got, because that's one of the biggest things that I foresee happening. There are going to be those who want to come take it away from you. And you can have all the other stuff in the world, and if you can't defend it and protect it, it's all worthless to you. So I put a little higher weight, but again, only by a little bit. I talk about it because it's something that I firsthand know. I make gear for a living. It's what I do. I'm not an expert, but I know a little bit. So, since we're on that subject, let's just go ahead and start out there, right? What do you need to have as far as, let's just say with firearms, right? What do you need to have? Well, first off, you don't need anything. I like to use the word, what do you want to have? What do you want to have is dictated by what do you want to accomplish. Well, if you're, say, in the Midwest with areas of fairly open terrain, and you may need to take, you may want to be able to take shots at 400, 500, 600 yards because of how open the terrain is, then you will want a rifle capable of accurately and effectively doing that, right? My area is very dense woodlands, swamps, etc. I want something that's relatively easy to carry and maneuver through such thick things. Long distance is not real high on my priority list because there are far fewer situations where I will want to be able to reach out and even be capable of reaching out at extended distances. And by extended distances, I mean past, say, 100, 150 yards, just due to the nature of the terrain and location of where I'm going to be at. So you have to figure out what you want. For me, quite honestly, this simple little AR right here does 95% of what I need one to do for my terrain, my situation, and who I'm with. It's just a 1X optic. It's fairly lightweight, handy, easy to maneuver with. I can do what I want to do with it. And I can do it effectively out to 300 yards, which is well within my general average range of 7 yards to 100, 150 yards. Even the 100, 150 yards are the rarity and not the norm, just due to the density of the terrain, right? So this is why this one is a clone, almost identical copy of my primary gun. That way I've got an exact backup duplicate of it, right? Now, maybe you're in that in-between phase. I don't know. But is that the right gun for you? I don't know. I show you guys that kind of stuff just to give you options and show you what I like. I've always tried to say I don't do reviews on stuff. If I did reviews on stuff, I would just be getting all kind of stuff from companies and going over it and showing you all the details of it. That's not what I do. I get stuff that I personally want and that I personally use for specific reasons, and then tell you guys why I like it and why I use it. That's primarily what I do. I don't do reviews per se, because I'm not going to show you stuff that I don't have any interest in, for the most part. So, moving on. Is this the right kind of gun for you? It's got a 1 to 6 variable on it. It'll do pretty much everything that the other one will do, but it gives you the capability of cranking up that magnification to 6x. Maybe that's what would work better for you in your situation and terrain. I have it because there are situations and scenarios that I will use this in. And we're not going to get off on the weeds and all that, because we'll be here forever. It's already going to be long enough as it is. But is this the right gun for you? Just a simple AK. We can get into that whole argument that just seems to rage like a freaking, there's like a necromancer somewhere, and it just keeps getting raised from the dead, and on and on and on. Guys, it doesn't matter. AK, AR, whatever. Get the one that you feel the most comfortable with. Take into consideration the availability of mags, ammo, and spare parts. Get one, and then get a whole lot of mags and ammo and train and practice with it. And remember, training and practice are different. Train and practice with it, because that's what's going to make the difference. Again, I've showed you guys a lot of guns. I have a fair amount. I've also told you guys, don't think that you've got to copy me or that I'm advocating having a bunch of guns. I have said before, I would rather you have one gun, a box of spare parts, a whole bunch of magazines, and a couple of cases of ammo, and train and practice like mad with it, and that be the only thing you have. I would far rather you do that. Do not think I am saying you got to emulate or copy me. I have reasons why I'm doing what I do, and I don't have to go into them on here. I'm showing you the stuff that I like I said, and that I use. Get the one that you feel comfortable with and learn how to use it. Don't let anybody try to tell you that one is better than the other. They're both great weapons. They will do what pretty much all of us need them to do. It's honestly just a matter of personal preference. You could also factor in such things as terrain. For example, in my really heavily thick wooded terrain, there are some advantages to a 7.62 by 3.9 AK, and it's not because it'll shoot full of mud. It's because the 7.62 by 3.9 round, its bullet weight and ballistic characteristics make it really good in thick, dense brush. There's things like that you got to take into consideration. So don't get wrapped up in part of the live stream I was watching last night. Part of the thing that gentleman was getting into, and he was right, is you get on social media and it's like everybody is showing the latest and greatest, cool, freaking awesome, state-of-the-art stuff. And it's all about having the latest and greatest and coolest. Maybe it is for people that think this is a game and a hobby. That's the other thing you've got to determine in your head. If you were serious about this, it's not a game and it's not a hobby. It's for real. So get that squared away in your own headspace first. But you don't have to have the latest and greatest, coolest thing. You ain't got to have the latest and greatest, most expensive thing, right? My $600-700 AR, my simple AK, when it all comes down to it in a real fight, it's going to do everything that a $2,000 AR is going to do. There are those that are going to argue that and disagree with me. That's fine. It's okay for you to be wrong. It's not illegal. But that's just the plain truth. You don't have to have a gun with a pedigree behind it and a flashy name and expensive stuff. Get it, use it, and make it work. That's why I'm so big on Palmetto State Armory, Expo Arms, etc. You can get a good gun and you ain't got to break the bank. Okay. The latest and greatest isn't it, right? So, is that what you should be focused on? The guns and the training? Well, let's get into the training side of it. Unfortunately, a lot of training that is offered right now and for years is either out of context or largely irrelevant for the unprepared citizen. This is going to ruffle some feathers, but you know what? Your little video clips on Instagram or whatever of how awesome your split times are while you stand perfectly still at 7 yards in front of a perfectly still target on a nice, safe directional range is largely absolutely irrelevant in a real fight, because 99% of the time the bad guy's not going to just stand there and let you shoot at him. 99% of the time, if he's got a gun shooting at you, you ain't going to just stand there and let him shoot at you. I mean, if you can force yourself to do that, most people are going to reflexively move, and you'll find that out if you ever get shot at. But if you can force yourself to stand there, chances are you ain't going to have to worry about your split times because you're going to be dead. That's just the reality. You should be learning and training and practicing on how to find cover and or at least concealment and fighting from there. And at that point, your split times are irrelevant and don't matter. You need to be taking aimed shots, etc. I know that's going to break some hearts, but that's just the state of the world. If you're being taught and trained that when you come under contact, under fire, that your default reaction is to mag dump in the general area of where you think the bad guys are at, unless you're in the military working in a squad or platoon size level with belt-fed weapons and explosives such as grenades, it's not going to work out so well for you. You need to be getting proper training that's relevant to the armed citizen and the things we may have to do. Get training and practice in how to deal with coming under an ambush, because here's the little reality of it. If you walk into a well-planned ambush, chances are you're done. That's just the simple reality of it. So the catch is, learn how to not walk into an ambush. There's some reasons behind that. But are you going to places and people that will train you and teach you how to do that? As armed citizens, outside of and again, we're not talking about everyday life concealed carry stuff, right? We're not talking about the guy robbing you at the Jiffy store, which is a thing and you need to practice and be prepared for. But mostly the context of this stuff we're talking about is things have just gone completely and irrevocably horribly bad. There ain't no 911 and police and rescue and all that coming. That's the context that we're in here. When you're taking training, work on marksmanship. Find people that are going to teach you how to be accurate at 100 yards, 200 yards. Doesn't have to be big round counts. Doesn't have to be running and gunning. Just old school marksmanship. Can you hit that target that's 100 yards away? And you don't have to be a sniper, right? Everybody thinks you got to be again, as we talked about before, your guns don't all have to be half minute of angle guns. Don't go chasing minutes of angle. You know my criteria for a fighting gun, minute of man. If it'll hit a man-sized target at 100 yards, I'll go with it. Doesn't mean you don't want good accuracy. It means don't get wrapped around the axle on, oh my God, I've got to have a half MOA gun. You don't. You don't have to be able to put it through a man's eye socket at 150 yards. Okay? Reliably and repeatedly hit a man in the chest at 100 yards. Work on those kind of things, because realistically speaking, the vast majority of us are not even capable humanly of taking advantage of the inherent accuracy built in to the vast majority of modern firearms. We just aren't. The training side is a big one, guys. You've got to have proper training. And again, we're still just in the martial side of it, right? Get relevant training. Instead of thinking about running around kicking in doors, find training that's going to teach you how to be sneaky and stealthy and be able to go out and gather information without ever getting into a fight. Because when the world goes bad, every fight you get into is going to cost you something. It's going to cost you something irreplaceable. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you ammo. It's going to cost you magazines, wear and tear on your weapons, wear and tear on your gear, injuries, potentially death. And all of those things are irreplaceable. You will not, 99% chance, be able to replace those things that it cost you for every fight you get into. You will not have an unlimited supply of mags and ammo. You won't be able to go just jump back on the internet at the end of the day and order more of them. Simple injuries that you take in a fight may end up killing you because of lack of medical care, that if you were able to get proper medical care, maybe you'd be all right. But that's not the context of what we're talking about here. too many people put too much fantasy cool guy stuff up and don't want to embrace the realities of the situation. Being sneaky and unseen is going to be a bigger priority than running around running and gunning and kicking indoors. Do you know how to break contact if you get into a fight? Because that's kind of like, for me personally, my big number 2 thing. The number 1 thing is to be sneaky enough that I don't get seen and get into a fight. Or if I need to get into a fight, I'm sneaky enough that the bad guys don't know I'm there and I'm the one setting up the ambush, and I make it so that the fight is over with just like that, very quickly, very decisively. But if I do get spotted, if I do come into contact for whatever reason, I got to be able to get out of Dodge and get away. I'm not looking to sit there and have a stand-up fight unless, and this is a very situational thing, unless I can determine real quick, and I mean like microsecond quick, that whoever I'm going up against, me and whoever I'm with, we can take out quickly and easily, relatively safely. But that's a microsecond decision you got to be able to make on the fly. You may or may not want to do that. So know how to break contact and get away. How many people actually focus on that? Gathering information is going to be a big deal for you, I believe. Being like, I think we're going to operate far closer to like what my own personal uncle did as a ranger and alert in Vietnam. We're going to have to work as really small teams with only the supplies that we can carry, with no help and no resupply, with the goal of not getting into a fight, but gathering as much valuable, useful information as we can, and only getting into a fight when we dictate it. I really believe that's going to be far more applicable to us than trying to operate like SEAL Team 6 or CAG or the latest and greatest guys that have been famous throughout the last 20 years of the war on terror. Not denigrating those guys, I'm just saying that what they did is probably 99% of the time not going to be applicable to us. Did I say that you shouldn't know how to do CQB stuff? Absolutely not. I most certainly did not say that. I think you should know how to do it. Knowing how to do it, though, and putting it as a primary focus are two different things. I think you should know how to be sneaky and stealthy. I think you should know team tactics. I think you should know how to conduct a security patrol. Well, I don't have anybody else but just me or just one or two other people. Okay. That still is not a reason to not have that training and knowledge and experience. Because the day may come when you suddenly find yourself with other people and somebody needs to know that information. And wouldn't you feel better if you were the one that had that knowledge and information and had practiced and trained it and knew it so that you could teach it to the others and know that you were teaching them right versus taking somebody else's word for it and their entire exposure to it may have been what they did on a video game, but you have no way of knowing because they're a complete stranger to you? It's not out of the realm of possibility of what you may find yourself in. There's never a reason not to know information and never a reason not to practice and train on certain things. Doesn't mean you have to put an overly hard focus on it. Doesn't mean that you have to plan on that being something you primarily implement it, but be well-rounded. Know some of this stuff. At least have trained it and practiced it a few times. And keep it in mind, just training and practicing a few times does not make you an expert or fully versed in it. It just means you got a rough idea of how to do it. Getting really good at it only comes from repetition and practice. So now we're moving into another one. What about your gear? man, I mean, it's the latest and greatest on all the inner tubes and the socialist medias and all that stuff. Everybody's got their latest and greatest gear. What's the right gear for you? Is it a plate carrier with some nice good old bulletproof plates in it? Well, that has a place. But here's the problem. Quite honestly, plate carriers are a very limited use item. They're a very specific use item, in my opinion. I really fear that in today's modern day and age, plate carriers have become this magic talisman that unintentionally, I truly believe, is going to cause people to do things and take risks that they otherwise wouldn't take, because subconsciously they've got that bullet stopping thing on. And the problem is, there's a whole lot of other parts of your body that, if a bullet goes through them, is going to cause you to have a real bad day, especially if you ain't got a good hospital trauma center close by you can get to. Because again, there ain't no helicopter coming to medevac you out if you get shot through the leg or the arm. Pelvic girdle, neck, gut. You get the idea. Put body armor in its proper context. For me, if I'm fortunate enough to be working in a vehicle, heck yeah, I'm sitting down in a vehicle. I'm absolutely going to have it on. If I'm sitting static guard duty somewhere, say I'm sitting in a little guard post by the gate to our property or something, I'm a sitting static target. I'm not having to move around. I got mags and supplies stacked up right there at my spot. Of course I'm going to have body armor on. If I have to intentionally go do something where I know I'm going to get into a fight and I can get there via vehicle or whatever, I'll take the body armor. If I've got to be out and about and mobile, and this applies to rural areas like where I'll be at, semi-rural, suburban, etc. If you've got to be up and mobile, I can just about tell you, again, my opinion, you're going to be far better off with just a chest rig. You're going to be more mobile. You're going to be better easy to function and function more versatilely than with body armor on. And that mobility is going to be key, because again, we're not wanting to get in a protracted fight. We're wanting to get out of a fight faster than what we got into one. Being mobile is going to be key. How do you set your gear up? Well, that all depends. I've got radio and comms and stuff on mine because of my situation. You may not. You may need to set up your gear completely differently than what I do. Again, too much dogmatic stuff being put out there of, here's how you have to have this set up, here's how you should, or you're wrong. Well, no. I set my gear up for my purposes based on where I'm at, what I'm doing, who I'm with, the climate, etc., etc. I would encourage you to try to avoid setting your gear up like you're assaulting Fallujah. Again, think mobility in mind. You should be carrying a backpack if you're doing this stuff. Period. You should be carrying a backpack. And that's where 90% of your equipment and supplies need to be. The stuff on your chest rig is just because of, oh my gosh, bad things are happening right now. I carry spare mags in my pack. I can use those to reload my chest rig with when the opportunity allows, or if I can get to a good point of cover and a good hard point that I know I can defend, I will reload from the ruck and save the ones on my chest rig. Boy, I just heard people gasp over that one. But believe it or not, there's actually some really awesome guys out there that do that in real life. They just don't get a whole lot of attention because they're not plastered all over the place. What if you're on a budget? What if you are just financially strapped and getting a chest rig and all this stuff just isn't honestly and legitimately in the equation because of all the other stuff that you've got to get? You know what? That's not a problem. Okay? I make gear for a living, okay? Keep that in mind as I'm telling you all this. That's one of my rigs that I make. It's what I do for a living. I will tell you right now, I think you would be well suited to do a whole lot of things when the world has gone bad with simply, and y'all have to forgive me, I busted my knee yesterday and my knee is telling me how much it does not like me right now. And yeah, that's painful and uncomfortable. I digress. This right here is a Minuteman bag from Sojourn Gear. My buddy Cody makes these. These are awesome. He doesn't have them all the time, but whenever he does, I highly recommend you grab one and jump on it. It's a great piece of gear. I would take this bag and this gun, this combo right here, and my backpack, and I'd go do things and not feel the least bit underprepared, underready. I've got medical stuff in here. I've got other supplies in here. I've got spare mags in here. It's a great piece of gear. You do not have to have the latest and greatest fancy stuff. Another point on the gear thing. Gear is very specific on what you're doing and where you're doing it at. Because guess what? I pretty much tell you 99% of the time, open top stuff with lots of the magazine not only exposed but not retained, as cool as that is on the range and as great as that is for your split times, and in areas where that may work, say for a SWAT team kicking in doors serving a warrant, out there in the world, even in your semi-rural subdivision, you're going to quickly find yourself in a lot of situations having issues. Because again, the focus ain't going to be on those split times. It's going to be on retaining and protecting those highly valuable magazines full of ammo. Yeah, you can say I'm saying that just because that's how I make my rigs. Okay, fine, whatever. But I make them that way specifically for the armed prepared citizen for a reason. And it ain't because I just sat down and thought, oh, let me just do this. It's because I talked to a bunch of people who've done it for real and gotten what I consider pretty solid input from them that's a thing. This right here is like a magazine pouch with a giant flap on it. It does what I need it to do. It's a great piece of gear. You could be on a budget, and if all you had was that and a backpack and your rifle, and you've done enough training and are a competent marksman, I think you're pretty daggum good to go compared to most of the population. Crazy as that may sound, all right? Do you need to focus on all that stuff? Yeah, you need it. Don't let anybody tell you don't need gear. You do. Anybody that says you don't is just trying to be, uber cool by being anti whatever. You need gear and you need good gear. Doesn't mean it has to be super expensive. Doesn't mean it has to have the latest and greatest, freaking name brand pedigree behind it. Just needs to be good. Doesn't have to be mine. There's plenty of other people out there whose gear I recommend. Cody's is one of them. I want you to be prepared and ready. Doesn't mean you got to have my stuff. Medical stuff. You need medical stuff in your gear, but you not only need it in your gear, but you need it where you're living at, be it your house, your retreat, wherever. What kind of medical stuff? Medical stuff is something that I don't think people put enough focus on in the right areas. You need on your gear to have what I consider a bleeder kit. Not a full IFAK, but a bleeder kit. You need something equivalent of a couple of chest seals, a pressure bandage, and a tourniquet to, holy crap, that's a lot of blood, we got to stop it right now. That you can do yourself. You know that pack I talked about that you should be carrying all the time? That's where I'm going to have a larger IFAK that once I've gotten that bleeding stopped and I'm still alive and we've gotten the fight over with, then myself or my buddies can take that larger IFAK and proceed to provide additional care as required. But I don't have to have that on my gear. I can have it in or on my pack so that we can get to it later. That's not going to be a, oh, I got to do it right this minute in the middle of a fight kind of thing. What you should even have more of in your gear, at home, at your retreat, wherever, is not necessarily 5 cases of tourniquets and 6 cases of emergency bandages, but a whole lot of Band-Aids, gauze pads, rolled gauze, different size and shape Band-Aids, surgical tape, Coflex, substitute stitches, little packs of antibiotic ointment, Tylenol, ibuprofen, Benadryl, all that kind of stuff. Again, I've railed about that in the past. Look, gunshot wounds and cuts to things like major arteries are usually going to be pretty decisive, and you're probably only going to need that tourniquet or pressure bandage once. That's just the reality of it. Having cases of them, probably not going to need them. You might need them for other people, but for what we're talking about, the morbid side of it is you're probably only going to need it once, because again, we're not talking about the availability of major trauma centers with vascular surgeons, general surgeons, etc., etc. However, when you're doing the things that we're talking about here, like simply just taking a patrol through the woods around your property, vines, briars, whatever, you trip and fall and get cut on a stick, those things are going to need to be treated, because dying from an infection from a little half-inch cut from a briar that was covered in swamp muck is going to be a very slow, agonizing, painful death that could be prevented by a $3 box of Band-Aids and a couple little packs of antibiotic ointment. And you may have to do that, hell, once a week. You might be doing that a lot. Lots of things to treat minor injuries with are probably going to be far more prevalent and valuable to you than lots and lots of tourniquets and pressure bandages and all that. Again, I'm not saying don't have that stuff. You absolutely positively should have it, and not only should you have it, you should, guess what? Go get training on how to properly use them all, and then practice using them all. You even need to be practicing working in medical stuff to your regular training. Like, you and a couple of friends work in a scenario where somebody just randomly calls out that one of you has taken an injury. Joe, you just got shot in the arm. What do you do? And you got to manage where the shot came from, returning fire, breaking contact, him treating his wound, getting him out of there. It can get chaotic real fast. And your brain can say, yeah, no, I've had enough for the day, switch. And the only way to get around that is to practice it. Practice throwing in medical scenarios into your firearms training, because you're going to take injuries. Sad but true, you do it enough, it's going to happen. One more final thought on gear. And this might ruffle a few feathers, and again, no apologies made for it. It's really big on social media for everybody to talk about and make comments towards, oh, that gear you're showing in that picture is all clean and brand new. You never use it. You never train with it. Look at my gear. It's all dirty and filthy. I use it all the time. Well, number one, a lot of times it's bullcrap, because I can take 2 rigs and take one of them that I train with all the time that's clean and in good shape, and take another brand new one and drag it through the swamp out back and show you both of them. And I bet there's a whole bunch of you that would think the swamp muck covered one was the one that I used all the time. Ugh. I've lost count of how many classes I've done with this rig, of how much muck and crap I went through with this rig. Does it look dirty to you? You see any dirt in there? There's some scratches on the buckles. There's some wear on some of the stuff. But it's clean. Stop making judgment calls on how much somebody actually uses their stuff by whether it's dirty or not. Because in my world, if you showed up and your gear was all filthy dirty, you ain't coming with me. Because that shows me you don't take this stuff seriously. Because if you did, you would keep your gear clean and maintained and in good working order. As someone who manufactures nylon gear for a living, guess what? When you leave your gear filthy, every single grain of sand and dirt and silica, etc., that gets in the fibers of this webbing and thread and material, it acts like little microscopic buzz saws. As that fabric moves, it's in there just gnawing away on the structural integrity of that gear. And then every time you get it wet, be it from sweat, whatever, it magnifies that. And that crap's going to hold moisture in there on it. You're doing yourself a disservice by trying to impress people how awesome you are and how much you train by leaving your gear filthy and dirty. Again, it tells me you don't take this stuff seriously. You keep your gun clean. You keep your gear clean. You're not going out with me to do anything if you've got a dirty gun and dirty gear, because you're not taking it seriously. Clean your crap. Unless you want it to fail at a very unopportune moment and at a time and place of its choosing and not yours, keep your gear clean. Get it dirty, use it, and then clean it. It doesn't take long. A freaking bucket of water and a little bristle brush, and you can get 99% of the job done real quick and easy. Don't leave your gear dirty, people. It's not a thing. It's not cool. It's not awesome. It doesn't impress, well, it may impress some people, but it doesn't impress me and folks that I know with how awesome you are. You just don't do it. So clean your crap. If you're going to depend your life on it, why would you not? Why would you not keep it in good, clean, working order? I don't get that. Again, you do you. I'm just telling you what I do and how I do things. Should you be focusing on this? Communications. Well, I don't have anybody to talk to. Who said you need to talk? What about just listening? You can gather a ton of information just by listening. But here's the reality. You can't just get one of these and turn it on and listen. There's a whole lot more to it of knowing how to make it work to listen to what you want to listen to, knowing how to make the right antennas to increase your listening capability. If you do have people to talk to, increasing your ability to talk to them, learning how to be able to talk to each other in a secure manner so that other people don't know what you're saying or doing. Because, like it or not, for the most part, we're not encrypting and hiding our signals from anybody. It's a nice thing to think about, and there are a few ways you can kind of do it, but people are going to listen. Now, that's not to mean that it's going to be, some super spooky government agency listening, but there could be other people that hold vastly different morals than you do listening. Being able to communicate in a manner that they have no idea what you're saying. Why the froggy's in the attic with the cat sweeping up the moppings, they don't know. But that's all stuff you got to be able to train and be taught and practice on yourself. Communications can be vitally important. You also need to learn in that communications aspect that, you don't have to have all the power. You don't necessarily have to reach out and talk, across the country. You might want to do just the opposite. You might want to keep your signal really low so that you're not broadcasting out there, so that if somebody does want to listen to you, they've got to get that much closer to you to listen to you. And if you're doing your security properly, it increases your ability to find them and know that they're listening to you. Yeah. How many of you thought of that? Hold on just a second, guys. I'm going to pause right here because I need to get the cord and plug in the camera because I just realized the battery light's flashing at me. Stand by 1 minute. Okay, now we got the power situation squared away. That was my bad. I did not realize the camera was that low before I even started the video. But we've been here a while, hadn't we? All right. Communications. You don't necessarily have to transmit all over the world. And you may want to for specific situations, but you need to learn when you want to reach out and when you want to keep it real short and close. Might be more advantageous to have radios that don't broadcast a real strong, far-reaching signal. Make people have to get right on top of you to hear what you're saying. That puts them at risk if you're doing your thing right. But communications can be a very, very important thing in the grand scheme of things. And no, it doesn't have to be expensive. I know people will poo-poo this, but yes, you can get away perfectly fine with a simple Bafang radio. I know it's fun to hate on them, but for most folks, they are an affordable option, and they do what most of us need it to do, especially with some proper training and practice. And I'm going to give a shameless plug here real quick. I don't think there is a better way to train and learn on using these than, in my completely and 100% biased opinion, my good buddy NC Scout over at Brush Beater Training. I don't think there's anybody better that's going to teach you better on how to use this stuff in our context and what we're doing than him. And again, I am 100% biased in that opinion, hands down. So that said, what do we need to be focused on? We need more cool guy stuff, right? We need more cool guy stuff. Well, yeah, you're just not prepared unless you've got that, right? Unless you've got some good night vision, you're just not prepared. Bunk, bullcrap. Is night vision nice to have? Absolutely. Is it a huge force multiplier? Absolutely. Are there a whole lot of other things you should put your money to in first? Oh, 100 times absolutely. Like, for example, before you start dumping money in the night vision, you better have a whole lot of that. Now, it don't have to be that specifically. I'm using that as an example for food. Yeah, now we get into the non-glamorous fun side of things. Food. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what it is, with some exceptions, but you got to have food, people. It can be canned food, cans of Campbell's soup. It can be freeze-dried food. It can be big number 10 cans. It can be actual mason jar canned foods. That's a great skill to have, and it is a skill, is being able to can stuff, because unlike popular opinion, taking food, for example, out of your garden and canning it is not as simple as just canning it. Like, you've got to know what you're doing and do that right, because at best you risk messing up the food, and at worst you can contaminate it, and when you go to eat it, kill yourself. It's a thing. Like, canning is it's an art to it that you better learn how to do it right and know how to do it right. All this other stuff we just talked about. How much time and research and practice have you put into being able to grow food? Even in a suburban home with a quarter-acre lot, you can still put a small garden in the back via raised garden beds, whatever. Learn how to grow food. And you really want to get into a rabbit hole or go down a rabbit hole, that's one you can go down, and boy, you'll think you're going to end up in Wonderland by how deep that rabbit hole goes. Knowing what kind of soil you've got, what'll grow in that kind of soil, what won't, what you can grow given the time of year that it is, having the right seeds on hand to do it, knowing what to look for once the stuff starts growing, how to keep pests and stuff off of it. One of my closest friends, in his little garden at his house, he had some great stuff growing, went to bed one night, got up the next morning, and half of it was covered with fungus and completely unusable. And then another time, went to bed one night, everything's fine, got up the next day, and half of it was just gone due to insects eating it alive overnight. That's the thing. You got to know how to deal with all that stuff. You got to know what potential threats there are in your area for food. All this other stuff, it's going to be great to have, and when you die clutching your rifle and your fancy plate carrier from starvation, somebody else is going to walk by and pick up that fancy rifle and plate carrier off of you because you starved to death because you didn't have any food. You can't just plop a seed in the ground and fruit sprouts up. It's way more complicated than that. Way more complicated than that. Having animals. Do you know how to take care of livestock? Be it something as simple as chickens, all the way up to goats, hogs, cows, whatever. Do you know how to raise them and keep them in good health and producing? Do you know what all it's going to take to do that? Food-wise, care-wise. There's a lot to it. A whole lot. Oh, I'm just going to go hunt and fish. Yeah, well, you and 350 million other people. You know how quickly the game population's going to get wiped out in most areas? Pretty doggone fast. But let's say you are lucky enough to get a squirrel, a rabbit, a raccoon, a pig, a deer, whatever. Do you even know how to process it and get the most out of it and utilize the most of it? Do you know how to preserve it and save it so that it's going to last? Have you put any thought into those things? Those are things in this whole big picture that you got to know. Having those medical supplies, having that capability of growing food, raising food, processing food, storing food. That's why we have the Marshall stuff, is to keep somebody from coming and taking that other stuff. But you can't do the Marshall stuff unless you've got the food stuff to keep yourself functional to do the Marshall stuff. You see how it's symbiotic? Do you have clothing? And I ain't talking about a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. I know it's cool to get up on Instagram and throw you cool guy pictures up in you of your swanky form-fitted t-shirt and your skinny jeans with a spare mag in the back pocket and showing you split times and everything's great. But yeah, in real cataclysmic grid down situation, you're going to die. Sorry. I'm just being honest. Have you actually given thought to your clothing? Because you know what? Clothing is not just, for a lot of people, some are the exceptions, but for a lot of people, it's not just about trying to emulate and look cool. It's for specific functional reasons, like going back to the Marshall side of things. Does it aid me in that whole stealth, concealment, sneaky aspect? Does it aid me in being harder to see? Because the harder I am to see, the harder it is to kill me. Have you given any actual thought to the construction of it? Here's a deal. In any environment that I know of, cotton is a bad idea. Just is. Jeans are going to be a really bad idea. They're fashionable. They're going to be a bad idea. Does that mean you got to have freaking $1,000 worth of, and I'm just going to pick them because I know they're expensive and popular, Cry Precision stuff? No. Does that mean Cry Precision is bad? No. But it doesn't mean that's what you got to have either. You can go pretty simple. Example, because I like to give you examples. This is my zip-up smock light from my good buddy at 0241 Tactical. I can use this year-round with a good pair of nylon cotton blend or poly cotton blend OD green pants. Even, wait for it, something just as simple and cheap as True Spec. And this top I can use year-round and accomplish 95% of what I want to do. Because this is mil-spec nylon cotton material. It's going to dry out fast. It's not going to hold the moisture on me like cotton does. Same with the pants. It gives me some concealment. It gives me a little bit of ventilation in hotter weather, and it's lighter weight. In colder weather, it's loose enough that I can put layers underneath it. And this serves the purpose of A, no matter what layers are underneath it, I maintain my concealing outer layer, but it also provides protection for those warming layers underneath it. In the summertime, I can run it by itself or just with a simple t-shirt underneath it. It's a simple piece of gear, and I can get away with that and a pair of pants and then a couple of appropriate layers for the time of year, and you're good to go. It doesn't have to be, like I said, $1,000 worth of Cry Precision stuff. I would urge you to have multiple. Go cheaper on the price side, not necessarily the quality side. Cheap quality and cheap price don't always correlate, right? You can get stuff for a cheap price that's good quality. But have multiples. Have multiple pair of pants, multiple good t-shirts. You can only have one or two of those tops. You don't need a bunch of those. But have redundant spares and backups. Get out there and use them and train in them. You've got to actually think about this stuff in more practical levels. And think about this. Honestly, when things go bad, God forbid, you're probably going to spend more time pulling security, which is going to involve doing this. going to be long and boring, just sitting around pulling security. You're going to be doing a lot of that. Not so much running around, running and gunning, boys, just blazing away, but a whole lot of this. Just sitting and looking and watching. That's a lot of what this is going to be. It's great to think we're going to be running around, bang, 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 bang. Probably not so much. Probably a lot more of that. Probably a lot more of, holy crap, how do we get these aphids off the squash plants? They're eating them alive. Holy crap, somebody get the 22 and get one of the kids to sit up tonight, and whatever rabbits are getting in here eating this stuff, have them take them out so we can put them in the stew pot. Probably going to be a lot of that. Whole lot of that. Tending the gardens, tending food, fixing food, taking care of water issues. Do you have capabilities to have good water? If the world gets to a point where you can't turn on the spigot in your sink and have clean water coming out of it, do you have plans for that? Do you have the items that you're going to need to do that with? This has gotten way long, and I told you guys it would. But you know the rule. The coffee cup's about empty. So whether I've said what I want to say or not, we're going to have to wrap it up because ain't no more coffee. And it's starting to storm outside, and I don't want to be sitting here doing this and the power go out, because that would just, well, make for a sucky video because you won't be able to see me. So, even with everything I've talked about, I didn't even delve nearly in as deep into each of those aspects as I wanted to. And I can already tell you there's still other aspects I haven't even touched on yet and covered. There's a lot to this stuff. One of the easiest ones to get wrapped around the axle, though, because it's so prominent and prevalent, is back on the martial side where we started out at, the guns, the gear, the training. There are a lot of instructors out there that are teaching stuff to fill classes and make money. That's fine. I'm all about capitalism. It's on you to make sure that the training you're getting is applicable to your situation and what you're going to be doing. There's some great instructors out there, but some of them don't teach anything that is going to be applicable to what I'm doing. Don't let yourself get wrapped around the axle of when all the latest and greatest stuff's being thrown up on social media, feeling like you're, undergunned, underprepared. You got to get rid of what you got and go get the newest, latest, and greatest. Or feel intimidated and put under peer pressure that, oh, well, I don't have the latest and greatest XYZ $1,500, $2,000 rifle. I've just got a simple $600 rifle. Don't feel intimidated or let peer pressure get to you on that. Take that $600 rifle, go make sure it works, and learn how to use it really good. I guarantee you, you'll be just as good as them or better, with probably, dare I say, even better, because you'll have more money left over for more ammo and mags, which means you're better prepared physically, and then more training time, more practice time, which that's what really makes you better. A guy with virtually no training and a $1,500 super cool fancy gun ain't going to stand a chance against you and your $600 gun with the hundreds of hours of practice and training time you've put in. That's just a simple fact. We ain't even touched on the physical side of things. I'll leave you with this. You absolutely need to be in the best physical shape that you can be in for you. Not for me, not for anybody else on social media, but for you. For you and your specific situation. You need to be in the best shape you can be for you. That's going to be different for each of us. Don't let yourself get intimidated into thinking that you're a dead man or woman and just there's no point in you even trying if you can't go compete in a Ironman triathlon, because that's bunk. It's absolutely bunk. Again, a whole another rabbit hole we can go down. My point with all this is, guys, if you stuck in here this long, kudos to you. It tells me you're serious. Serious if for no other reason than you're just willing to listen to what I'm saying, because you're seeking information. Doesn't mean my information is right or applicable, just that you're seeking it if you've held in here this long. The point is, there's a whole lot of aspects of this stuff. There's a whole lot of things we need to be doing. Don't let yourself get wrapped around the axle with various things. Get yourself focused on what you need to do. Sit down and if you have to, make yourself a list. Here's what I need to do in this area. Here's what I need to do in this area. Here's what I need on this area. And then just chip away at it. Just a piece at a time. I might need to buy, all I can do this week is buy one more box of ammo. Okay, that's one more box than you had last week. I might only be able to squeeze in time to go walk a couple of miles after work one day. Okay, it's a couple more miles than you walked last week, right? Just keep chipping away. Just keep chipping away, making progress. Don't get overwhelmed, wrapped around the axle, intimidated, and let all the high-speed cool kid club folks pressure you and intimidate you, or otherwise mock you or make fun of you because of what you got or what you're using. Try to get the best you can get for the money within reason, and then forget about the rest of it. This isn't a popularity contest. This isn't to show off to my friends. It's not to show you how cool I am. It's not a, going back to the beginning, hobby. It's not for fun. This is for real, and it has to be in all aspects of your life. And it's not about being paranoid. It's quite the opposite. It's about being very, very comforted in knowing that I've taken the measures that I can take to take care of myself, my family, my friends, my loved ones, whoever those folks may be, to the best of my ability. And you may be different, but for me, it's I've done the best of what I can do, and I can take comfort and relaxation in that because I know the rest of it. I just turn over to the good Lord and He's going to handle it. I've done what I can do. I've taken the hints that I feel He's given me and made the moves that I feel like He's directed me to make. Everything else I turn over to Him. It's a very comforting thing when you can get to that level and that point. But it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work. I just spent half a day sweating my butt off, working on stuff, helping my cousin, me and Buddy, and my son unloading a trailer full of hay. These are all things about being prepared and doing what you got to do, but you know, setting up the camera and y'all watching for a couple of hours us unload a trailer full of hay bales, who's going to watch that? Most people aren't. It's kind of boring. Kind of sucks because you're sweating your nuts off, and if you ever unloaded hay, you know what I mean about it. Just manages to get everywhere, and then you're all itchy afterwards, and you're sweaty and itchy, and it's not glamorous, but it's important stuff's got to be done. All right, time for a coffee cup refill. You guys take care. I hope maybe somebody's gotten something out of it. If nothing else, I hope it's got you thinking. I've tried to put a bunch of stuff in here, and there's no way, I don't even know how long the video is at this point, and I still know there's no way I've covered everything I wanted to cover. There's no way I've said what I wanted to say accurately. We're just kind of shooting from the hip and covering it. But It is what it is. So the clock's ticking. You guys know that. Do what you got to do. Keep getting things ready. You guys take care, stay safe, and I will see you in another one.